The Baseball Together Network presents the North Chicago Baseball Together podcast with your host, Denise. And now, North Chicago Baseball Together.
Well, hello everyone. This is Denise and welcome to my May and June 2023 podcast covering the Chicago Cubs for our Baseball Together family. As you've noticed, it's the end of June and yeah, I'm late again. I promise I will get back on my monthly track with just the end of the school year for my kids, Memorial Day holiday. I ended up moving. It's just been absolutely crazy busy with me. I've started softball twice a week now, but I'm starting to settle in a bit with my schedule as much as possible. So I'm hoping to get back to my kind of regularly scheduled podcast with this. So again, I apologize. So when we last left off, it was towards the end of April and the Cubs were playing amazing baseball. And then May came about and the wheels came off a bit earlier than expected, in all honesty. To be fair, we did have some injuries to some key players and that didn't help. We had pitchers Jamison Taillon, Brandon Hughes, Brad Boxberger, Nick Burdi, and Justin Steele all spend time on the IL, with Hughes and Boxberger moving to the 60-day. And it was actually just announced today that Brandon Hughes needs surgery and he's done for the season. Cody Hoyer, who was making rehab starts, also ended up re-injuring himself during his rehabs and he's going to need surgery. So that trade that we did for Hoyer a couple of years ago has really just not panned out at all. The good news is Kyle Hendricks came back. His first outing, he got off to a pretty bad start. He was shaky a little bit, but he's been back to his original form since then. He's won his last 3 starts. He's averaging just over 2 runs a game, and his whip is under 1. We've also had Cody Bellinger, Nico Horner, Edwin Rios, Yan Gomes, and Patrick Wisdom all on the IL at one point or another in the last month and a half. And then we released Eric Hosmer. So we've had a lot of movement already within these first few months. And honestly, the record showed it. We didn't have a consistent lineup. Players were kind of all over the place. And it's hard to get into that rhythm as a player when you don't know where you're starting, when you're starting, what position you're batting, etc. You would think that, it really shouldn't matter. But I mean, a lot of athletes are creatures of habit. And when they're shuffled all over the place and there's really no set pattern, guys are moving up and down from AAA, off and on the IL. It's hard to establish that as a team. So in May, we finished with a record of 10-18. We had dropped pretty much all the way to last place in the Central. By the end of the month, we kind of, juggled between 4th and 5th, but spent a lot of time of it in last place. But as we started getting players back in June, the record has improved. As of today, we're in 3rd place. We were just 3.5 behind the first place Cincinnati Reds. That's right. As of today, the Reds are in first. They are red hot. They've won 12 in a row. The Cubs have won, I think, like 8 of their last 9 or 10 of their last 11. So they're just as hot, but the Reds are even hotter. The Brewers are in second by just half a game. The Pirates have fallen all the way to 4th after the Cubs swept them in Pittsburgh. And then the Cardinals are in last place. So it's really crazy how much the division has shifted just in the last few weeks. It's almost just flip-flopped. For a while, the Cardinals were really moving up, and then their wheels just fell off. The Pirates had held first place for a good portion of the first 2 months, and now their wheels have fallen off. And the Reds, started out like with 3 wins in like the first 15 games, and now they're in first. So yeah, pretty crazy. But for June right now, going into today, we are 12-7 so far. We've got 6 games left to go this month, including the London series, which actually starts today against the Cardinals. I kind of wish I really had the funds to go to that, but I'm pretty excited to watch it. So some of our top performers so far have included Marcus Stroman is just, almost Cy Young material already. Nico Horner, Justin Steele, Drew Smiley, Ian Happ, Adbert Alzolay, Dansby Swanson, Jan Gomes. Mike Talkman has been great since coming up from AAA. He hasn't really had enough at bats to be like on the top of a lot of the team's stats, but he's doing amazing. Stroman leads pitchers on our team in ERA, wins, strikeouts, whip, batting average against, innings pitched, and has one complete game already. He's also leading the entire National League in ERA, and then he's third in all of the majors in that category. Horner's leading the team in average, RBIs, stolen bases, runs scored, and hits, and he's in the top 30 in all of the majors for average. He's in the top 15 for stolen bases. He's in the top 20 for hits. So he's having a fantastic season. I actually have him on my fantasy league, and he's doing pretty good for me there too. Not that that matters when it comes to, baseball, but it's good when you're playing fantasy. Justin Steele, he's tied with Drew Smiley for second in team wins, second in ERA, and third in strikeouts. He's actually swapped with Smiley in those last two. So he's second in ERA, Smiley's third, and then he's third. Steele is third in strikeouts, and Smiley is second. So both Smiley and Steele are doing fantastic as well. Happ seems to be having a down year compared to last season. He hit a pretty big slump in May, kind of like at the end of May, beginning of June, but he does lead the team in on-base percentage, in OPS, doubles, and walks. And he's actually kind of picked back up a little bit as of the last week or so. Alzolay, he's just filled in amazingly as a setup man or a closer. He does lead the teams in save. He's 4 for 4 in his opportunities. His ERA is a very respectable 1.91, and he's got a 0.85 whip, and that's across 33 innings pitched. So our, three of our 5 starters, Stroman, Steele, and Smiley, are fantastic. Hendricks, again, coming around now that he's back. Taillon started, Jameson Taillon, man, he was just getting roughed up. It was like every game he pitched, he lost. I think he went like 0-7 or 0-8, but he straightened something out. I can't remember if he went on the IL and came back and improved, or if it was just before, but he's straightened out his last couple of starts. So hopefully that's a good sign going forward for the rest of the season. Dansby Swanson, he's 4th in batting average, behind Nico and Seiya and Happ. He has 7 home runs. He's 3rd in on-base percentage and 2nd in walks on the team. And as a matter of fact, Nico, Seiya, Ian, and Dansby seem to lead the top 4 in our offense in almost every category. I'm good with that, especially since 3 of 4 of them have spent some time on the IL already this season. So I think Happ's the only one that hasn't gone to the IL of those 4, knock on some wood here. So it's great to see that, they're all consistent kind of across the board. Jan Gomes is hitting a fantastic, it's 269, which is pretty good, but he's got 7 home runs. He's got a 748 OPS. And while those don't sound like big numbers, they're actually all over his career average. And Talkman, I mentioned him earlier. He's hitting 289. He's got an 800 OPS in just 90 at-bats. Like I said, he doesn't have enough at-bats to really lead the team in a lot of categories, but he's still up there, because when he is playing and he's been called up, he's been up now for a couple of weeks regularly, but kind of the first month or two, he was just up and down, up and down, up and down. And, he was a spot starter or maybe like a pinch hitter, but he's been doing great. And then let's not forget my favorite, Christopher Morel. I love this kid. I know I talk about him almost every cast, but they finally called him up from AAA. Remember, I said I was really surprised that he started the season down in AAA, that he didn't make the active roster. after his amazing spring training. But they called him up in early May. He just came out like gangbusters. He homered in like his first 9 of 11 games or something. Almost all of them were over 400 feet. So it's not like he's just barely hitting it over the fence. I mean, he's just crushing the ball. He did cool off a little bit for about a week or two, but he's still hitting 268. He's got 13 home runs. He's got a 955 OPS, and he's got 29 ribbies in 123 at-bats. He is not a regular player. Ross doesn't insert him in the lineup every single day, but he does play kind of all over. Sometimes he's a DH, sometimes he's in the outfield, sometimes he's at second. So he's kind of all over, a rover, a utility guy, and no matter where he's at, he's playing fantastic ball. I love this kid. So again, on paper, it sounds like this team should just be on fire, but that rough month of May, it really set us back. Like I said, there was no consistency in the lineup, and, I know a lot of people, they want to blame David Ross, like, what is this guy doing? So-and-so had such a great game last night. He went 2 for 5 with 4 home runs, and now he's on the bench. And I can kind of understand that theory. Like, why aren't you playing the hot hitter? But he's also juggling, again, just injuries, guys that need some rest days. Because when you have these injuries and you have to call up guys from AAA, that aren't the greatest or might be in a slump, it's, you're playing then your regular guys every single day. And at some point, they do need a rest day. So then you're inserting, again, the guys that are called up to replace somebody that went on the IL. And it's tough to juggle. But I sometimes question, like, all right, did Nico hurt himself? Like, why is he sitting? Like Patrick Wisdom, he is just back striking out all the time. He's hitting home runs. He's had quite a few home runs, but he's kind of been all home run or nothing. And then it's like he has a really good game and then he's benched the next day. But he actually just went on the IL, so it could have been he was trying to battle through an injury and just couldn't. Sometimes that happens. A player gets hurt and they might sit for a game or whatever, or they don't think it's that bad of an injury where they need to go on the IL immediately, and they try to just kind of play through it and condition and all that stuff, and then they just can't, and it just keeps getting aggravated and aggravated and aggravated, and at that point you got to say, all right, you need a break. We need to put you down for a little bit. So I'm not really sure if that's what happened with Patrick, because there's something off with his swing. He was doing decently kind of to start, and then you could just see it. Something wasn't right with his swing. So, whether or not, again, was it just a plaguing injury that he was trying to battle through? I don't know. None of us are in the clubhouse. None of us have an inside track. We can only read and listen to, what Ross says, what the sportscasters say, what some of the beat reporters say, etc. But, so, again, like I said, that May month it really set us back, and we are getting back on track this month. So we're going to need to see how they're doing as we head into the All-Star break in a few weeks. The Cubs execs have already said that they're going to be buyers at this trade deadline. We kind of got through that. Usually that May slump is like August, right? It's the dog days of August. And you're hitting that slump, or you hit that slump as you go into the All-Star break because these guys need a break. And it hit us early. So it was, kind of looking in May, it's like, man, we're going to be sellers already. And then we really started bouncing back right towards the end of the month and as we got into June. So they're already saying that we're going to be buyers at the trade deadline. Remains to be seen, when we get there on August 1st. Stroman has been very vocal about wanting a contract extension. Cubs, as usual, are thin-lipped on that. They haven't said anything. Stroman has said he hasn't talked to anybody about it, but he really wants to stay here. I'd love to see it. He's having an amazing year. He's already an early lead candidate for the NL Cy Young, and he's pitching fantastic. He had one bad game against the Twins where he just got lit up, but other than that, like I said, he leads all the NL in ERA. He's doing fantastic. I do still think that this team has shades of that 2015 wild card team. May did have me looking to next season already at some time. But again, it's a really long season. Things can change in the blink of an eye. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint on a roller coaster. It's kind of the saying, hey, baseball's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's 162 games. And your goal is to just make the playoffs. With the expansion of the playoff format, I don't want to say it's easier, but it's not like you either win your division or you're out. It's no longer like that. They've added the wild card team years and years ago, and now they're continuously expanding that. So you just make the playoffs. I mean, that's it. That's your goal. So we're going to continue to see, like always, as we go through the season. So that's kind of it on the major level. Looking into the minor leagues, I always like to touch on the minor leagues. A lot of the minor leagues are already kind of halfway through the season. It's weird that it's already almost the end, that it is the end of June. And we're 3 months into this baseball season already. But the Iowa Cubs, that's our AAA team. That right now they're 41-29. They're first in the West. They're second overall in their international league, and then they're third in all of AAA as far as record. So they're doing great. The Tennessee Smokies, that's our AA team. They're 35-30, so they're second in their own division. They're second overall in the Southern League, and then they're eighth overall in all of AAA. So again, doing very well. The only team that's really kind of struggling is our high A team, which is the South Bend Cubs. They're 5 games under 500. They're 30-35. They're fourth in their division. They're 10th in the Midwest League. And then they're 22nd in like all of high A. So they're struggling a bit. Hopefully that kind of picks up or turns around. And then in single A, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, which it is my goal to go to one of those games. I don't know why, but they are just my favorite minor league affiliate of the Cubs. They are 39-26. They have already been named the 2023 the Carolina League South Division first half champs, and they lead the Carolina League for record, and they're third in all of single A. So they are doing fabulous down there. So again, I always say, if you don't follow the minors, you really should. And what I like this season, what I noticed, and this kind of started last season, but it picked up more this year, is the Marquee Network is showing more and more minor league games when the Cubs aren't playing. So if you can get Marquee for Cubs games, then you should be able to watch these minor league games as well. And they're showing more and more. I was watching the Myrtle Beach Pelicans game the other night, and I'll be honest, I don't sit and watch it as much as I do like the Cubs. Like the Cubs, I will sit down and watch an entire game. I'm usually kind of doing things as I have on the minor league teams, but I'll sit and watch like an inning or two, and I'll get up and do some things and, kind of come back and check in. But the minor leagues are they're so fun. So you really should. Again, if you get Marquee, check out their programming schedule and watch some of these minor league teams and games. They're fun to watch. Now, I mentioned earlier the All-Star game. I can't believe it's almost here. It's like just over 2 weeks away. That means we're already like almost halfway through the season. So the Home Run Derby's on July 10th, and then the All-Star game is on July 11th. So far, only Julio Rodriguez, who is the Young Mariners star player, he's the only one that's announced his participation in the Home Run Derby. Kind of makes sense since the game is in Seattle. But the names are going to start coming fast and furious in the coming days. But Julio Rodriguez has said he's in. Phase 1 of the All-Star Game voting has already finished. And in Phase 1, each vote getter of all positions, each leading vote getter of all positions automatically make the game and get a bye. They don't have to go to like round 2. So for the American League, it was Angels Shohei Ohtani. He got the most votes in the American League, so he's named an All-Star. And then the Atlanta Braves, Ronald Acuna Jr., he finished the NL with the most votes, so he is made the All-Star. Right now, there isn't a Cubs position player that's leading. Several of them were in the top 5. They maybe might make it as alternates. I can't imagine that Marcus Stroman would not make it as a pitcher, but you don't vote for pitchers. You're only voting for position players and designated hitter. So the pitchers are usually named later, and it's not a fan vote. That is a vote with the coaches, and then the players sometimes weigh in as well. So I would imagine at minimum Marcus Stroman would represent the Cubs at the game. I'm thinking maybe Nico might be an alternate. I think he led with the most for the Cubs, but I know like Bellinger was up there, Swanson was up there. Seiya had some pretty good votes for himself. So yeah, well, as anything, we'll have to wait and see. I can't really see any of them wanting to do the home run derby. We just don't have a lot of power hitters. We have guys that do hit very well, but we don't have any, huge power hitters that I could see wanting to participate in the home run derby. So that's with the All-Star game. So that's kind of it, not a whole lot. Like I said, there's just not a lot to talk about because, May was just such a down month. And then, like I said, we've picked back up in June. Currently at the London series, actually the Cubs just won the game 9-1, the first game. So nice to see that they won that first game and their offense came out. Steele had another fantastic game today. So that's about it. So I guess to wrap up, I'm going to kind of go through some of the standings. I did my predictions at the, my first podcast, but we've got some surprises in these standings already. I already talked about the NL Central earlier, so I'll talk about the East. As expected, the Braves are in first. They're up by 6 games over the Marlins. I had thought the Phillies were really going to battle with the Braves for that division, but the Phillies are in third and they're 10 back. And the Mets are in fourth. They're 14 games back. The Nationals in last. They're a full 20 games down. That was expected. But like I said, I had predicted the Phillies would be up there with the Braves, and they're 10 back. Marlins are having some fun. They're pretty decent. So even though they're 6 back, they are in second place. In the NL West, the Diamondbacks. Seriously, you heard that. The D-backs. They're in first place right now, 3.5 over not the Dodgers, but the San Francisco Giants. The Dodgers are actually in third, and they're 4 back. San Diego, again, just so overrated and so disappointed. Like every year, I'm just like, man, I hope San Diego takes it from LA, just to have a shuffle because you expect that rivalry. On paper, San Diego should be smoking everybody with the Dodgers, but they're 9.5 back from the Diamondbacks. And then the Rockies, again, Rockies are going to Rocky. They're 17.5 back. So the West is a bit of a shock that the Diamondbacks, the last couple of years, they've finished either 4th or 5th in their division, and they're 3.5 over the Giants. Again, not even the Dodgers or the Padres, over the Giants. So, That's one of the surprises right now in the divisions. Over to the American League in the AL Central, which is by far the worst league in all of MLB. The Twins are the only team right at 500 or near 500. I think a couple of days ago, all of them were under 500, but I think the Twins, last I checked, they were at 500. They're in first. The Guardians are only a game back, So a team that's under 500 is one game back from winning or from leading a division. That's how bad this division is. The Tigers are in third by 4.5. The White Sox are 6 games back, and then the Royals are 16.5 back. Again, the White Sox just disappointing, not living up to what everybody thought they were going to be again. I would have expected the Tigers to be near the bottom of the division. What's weird about the AL Central is that these teams are actually playing with the records you think they would play at, but because the first place team is like barely at 500, it makes it seem like a lot closer than it should be, right? You would expect, like last year, the first place team, the AL Central again was the worst, and the first place team ran away with the division, but it's because they were the only team that was playing decent baseball. All of these other teams in that division are actually playing with what you expect as far as a record, but because the entire division is horrid, there's not many games separating that first place team from everybody else, the Twins from everyone else. Over in the AL East, the Rays still red hot. They still lead the division by 4.5 games. The Orioles, though, Baltimore Orioles are in second place, 4.5 games back. The Yankees are down in third. They're 9.5 back. The Toronto Blue Jays are a full 10 games down, and then the Red Sox are 12 games down. And so the AL East is like polar opposite of the Central, where everybody's actually playing pretty good baseball in the East, but because all the teams are good and then the Rays are just so good, it makes it look like they're just absolutely smoking and run away with the division. And then finally in the AL West, this is the other one. So it seems to be the West, right? In the NL West, it was the Diamondbacks. In the AL West, the Texas Rangers. The Rangers are in first place. I love it. 5.5 over the Houston Astros. The Angels are 6 games back in third. The Mariners are 9.5 back. And the Athletics, which, unfortunately soon to be in Vegas, they are the worst team in all of the majors, and they are 28.5 games back. In that one, I really expected the Mariners, kind of like the Phillies, the Mariners to make a better showing, and they're playing some mediocre baseball as well. So, yeah, the two West divisions, the Diamondbacks and the Rangers, like when was the last time you heard them, those two teams, leading a division almost halfway, and not just by like a game. The Diamondbacks are 3.5 over, and the Rangers are 5.5 over the Astros. So, I mean, granted, a sweep or something like that, or just a small losing streak can flip that very quickly. But I can't remember the last time I heard those two teams leading a division halfway through the season. So that's about it for my Cubs podcast here for May and June. Remember, you can listen to all of our Baseball Together casts wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share with your other baseball friends. And as always, feel free to send me any questions, suggestions for topics, etc. And I will see you all at the end of July. Bye.